We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in volume 20, Chelik Chof. This is the third Sicha for this Parshas Chayei Sara. The Rebbe bases himself on the pasuk in which Eliezer was praying, and he says that he even hasn't finished praying yet, and he got responded. Hashem responded to him, and Rivka, he met up with Rivka to find a wife for his master's son, for Yitzchak. And the Medrash brings down that there's three people that were responded immediately. And the Rebbe says that the comparison really is because what they were praying about. All of their prayers were prayers of connection, whether it's connecting the world or connecting people or connecting Torah, the different levels, Eliezer and Moshe and Shlomo, as we will see in the Sikha. The Rebbe also explains why is it that by Eliezer it says Vahihu terem kilo, that it was even before he finished, meaning that by Eliezer the response from Hashem is even greater than the response to Moshe and Shlomo. Over there it was ki chaloise when they finished praying. Over here it was before they finished praying. So what's the advantage of Eliezer, as the Rebbe will explain in different ways, but we'll go step by step. Aleph. Sorry, Gimel Aleph. Oifun posik vayihu terem kilo ledaber v'hine Rivka yotzes. So he, before he can even finish speaking, and talking basically to Hashem, that he should provide for him the shidduch, the proper shidduch, the making himself the signal that if she will offer him the water also for his camels, so before he can even finish speaking, it says, Vine Rivka yotzes. And behold, Rivka was coming out, V'kada al shichma, she had the jug, and she was going to get the water, and everything developed even before he can finishing his prayers. Bring the Medrash, the Maimer for Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So the Medrash brings the statement, the saying of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who says that Shloisha heimnenu b'mane piyam. There are three that were responded in response to their mouth. They prayed, and they were responded to. Who are the three? Eliezer Avdei Shel Avraham. It's Eliezer, the servant of Avraham. The story in this pasuk we're talking. U'Moshe u'Shlomo. The Medrash explains. Eliezer, we see that he was responded to. It says, "Vayihu terem kilo ledaber." Even before he finished speaking, Rivka comes out. That's Eliezer. Moshe, the Ksiv, when Moshe had the confrontation with Dasom and Aviram, so it says that he said to Hashem to create this new creation, and they should be swallowed into the ground. So the pasuk says, as he concluded to speak, as kol hadvarim ha'elu, all these words, vatiboka adama, and the earth split open. So here too we see that he spoke. He finished speaking, and he was responded to. The earth split open, as he had prayed for. And Shlomo, and also we find by Shlomo, the Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Shlomo lihispalel el Hashem. As Shlomo concluded praying to Hashem, after asking Hashem to bring the Shechina down after building the Beis Hamikdash. So when he finished the Spal Hashem, so the fire descended from the heaven of the Gomer, so that it was responded b'mayne PM in their prayer. So the Rebbe wants to say, it almost seems like in the simple that we're trying to compare here the greatness of these three people. But the Rebbe is going to say that's hard to understand, that we should compare Eliezer, Eved Avraham, to Moshe and Shlomo. Doesn't sound right. So that the reason why they were responded to somehow because of their elevated matter. What about other people that were great people? But the Rebbe says that we have to say it has more to do with what they were praying about rather than who was praying. So it's not so much the people, but it has to be the prayer. So the Rebbe begins that simply it would seem that we're trying to talk about the greatness of these people over here. But we can't really say that because that wouldn't really fit to say that Eliezer is equal to Moshe and Shlomo. From Pashtus, Loshen HaMedrash is mashma l'chayra. From the simple language of the Medrash, it appears, seems to be, as that Inyan was nenu b'mane piem, the idea that they were responded to when they spoke, their prayers, is verbunden mit der Meile Ishis, that is connected to the personal greatness, advantage from the Oizgerechente Shloisha, from these enumerated, these three people of Eliezer, Moshe, and Shlomo. Und wie bald as wie drei, as ba die drei is ein und derselber Schar. Since by these three there is one and the same reward, nenu b'mayne pia. They were responded to in which they prayed, meine pia. Ubefrat, especially at the Medrash is especially. So the fact that they both got the same reward similarly tells us that they're all three the great people. But the Medrash especially emphasizes shloisha. It says includes them all. There are three that there was three. In other words, this is the elite, distinguished, this great group that had this advantage that they prayed and they were answered. Means koilel element zusammen, we include everybody together. So is move on. So that is understood, since we're saying these are the three that can get the answer right away is when they pray, asido atzad, maila hashove in the aledrai, that there is a side, there is some sort of greatness, which is equal by these three, and that's why these three was answered. According to this simple approach that seems to be the pshat in the Medrash, that it has to do with the three individual numerated there, and that's why they had this special response immediately when they prayed, that's a connection between the three, but that needs to be understood. Darf man verstehen, wie ist Shaykh zu vergleichen? How is it even possible to compare Afila di Zelbe Maila, even if we talk about, let's say there's some special greatness which brings about the response of Hashem right away. Vizi is by Eliezer Eved Avram, the way it's by Eliezer, who is Avram's servant, to Moshe and Shlomo, How could we even say whatever that Maila is, but a Maila which is by Eliezer, who is a servant, an Eved Avram, how could we even say that it's compared to Moshe and Shlomo? Not only that, but in that case, if it has to do with the Maila of the people that are praying, why would even Eliezer get answered even before? It seems even more than Moshe and Shlomo. The to me is noch größer. The surprise is even greater. V'mefarshim fragen, as the commentaries ask. The piv by tefillas Elazar, the response to the prayers of the mouth, the speaking of Eliezer, by tefillas Eliezer, which was by the prayer of Eliezer, is given mita Yisrael. That had an advantage. Gicha, that was quicker. I've did tefillas Moshe v'Shlomo over the prayers of Moshe and Shlomo. By Eliezer and state, because by Eliezer the pasuk says, "Vayhi who terem kilo ledaber. Over there it says it was before he could finish speaking. Is nene geworden noch eider hat geendigt sein Tefillah. He was responded to even before finishing his prayer. Mash'enkin by Moshe Shloimo, as opposed to Moshe Shloimo, is thus given b'gemarat philosom. Over there was when they finished davening, when they were responded to. The Pasuk says, by Moshe, it says, "Vahi ki chaloisoi ledaber." He finished speaking. Chaloisoi. He concluded his prayer, Moshe. And by Shlomo, it says, "Uki chalois Shlomo lispal." When he finished praying, kumtois. It turns out, as is do an ilui by Eliezer legabe Moshe and Shlomo. It turns out that there is an advantage. There is a greatness by Eliezer, even relative to Moshe and Shlomo. How could that be? Uh, so if we learn in the pastures that it's because of the people, that's why there is this special response of Hashem, then how could we say that Eliezer is greater than he even has responded to even before Moshe and Shlomo? So how could we say that? And also, what about other great people? Why don't we find it by them? Ich darf them verstehen. Also, we need to understand. If this is mitzad der Meile von the mention, if this is because of the greatness of these people, Havos is nenu b'mayne piyam. So how come the response when they prayed, given nor by ze unid ba'andre, it was only by them and not by others? How come we don't find others? Great people didn't have this. Because of all these issues, we have to, the Rebbe changes and says, no, we have to say it's not the people that are the reason for the response, not their greatness, but it's the type of prayer which brings around the response right away. So we have to, therefore, we are forced to say, as der Inyan was the Gimel Nenu b'mayne piyam, that this idea that these three were responded to their prayers when they spoke is verbunden nicht as I feel. It's not so tied mit der Meile von the Mispalalim with the greatness of those who are praying of the people. Nor be ikern, but mainly mit teuchen hatfilas. Mainly, it's the contents of what they were praying about. That it is their prayer because of what they were praying about. That's what mainly brought about the quick response, not the people, because saying the people would not really fit, that we find that Eliezer is even more responded to than the others. But in any event, the Rebbe says we have to say that it's what they were praying about. So what is this about their prayer? What is this special that gives them the response right away? Is Deutsch Biur, so this requires explanation. What is the Maila HaMiyuchedes from the Gimel Tefillas? What is the special advantage of these three prayers? Was Davke by Zeh is given Nenu B'Mane Piyam, that it was only by them that they were responded when they spoke. They were responded and responded right away. What is this prayers? What were their prayers specifically? So the Rebbe is going to explain. So here the Rebbe, first of all, in Ois Aleph, the Rebbe proved that it's not the greatness of these three people that brings about the response, but it's what they were praying about. What is this prayer? So the Rebbe explains based on a Rambam that the Rambam talks about a Baal Tshuva who is responded immediately. The Rebbe brings out that when there is a connection to Hashem, the more connected to Hashem you are, the quicker is the response. the Rebbe is going to bring from the Rambam, there is a level to be korev, close to Hashem, and there is a level to be dovuk b'Hashem. If in the level of korev, it's quick, but it's not as quick as the level of dovuk. That's how the Rebbe explains the two halachas in the Rambam, in which the Rambam talks about tshuva, that it becomes close to Hashem, but separately, he says first it becomes close to Hashem, and then it becomes dovuk. And when he talks about becoming dovuk, cleaving and connected, pasted and connected to Hashem in a way of dvekis, over there he says miyad nena, he's immediately answered. Let's look inside. Rebbe is going to clarify, explain the languages in the Rambam. Vetman dos verstehen bei Hagdim, will understand it by first introducing the Hagdim, the Hasboras Hamayla, explaining the advantage from them was mis nena ifat tefillah b'mayne piv, the fact that a person has responded to a prayer when he prays, to understand what is this greatness. So the Rebbe brings down from the Rambam that the Rambam in Sefer Hayad Zogt, in the Sefer Yad, the Rambam says, as eine von den Meiles von Abal Tshuva, that one of the advantages of Abal Tshuva is was is tzoyek v'nene miyad, that he cries out and he is immediately responded to. The Rambam's language is as follows, quoting the Rambam, Ubilu Shoynei. Kamo me'ula meiles hatshuva, how advantageous is the advantage of tshuva. Emesh hoyazeh muvdal me Hashem elokei Yisrael. Yesterday, before he did tshuva, this individual was separate from Hashem, the God of Israel. Tsoyek ve'inenena, he would cry out, but he would not be responded to. But v'hayoim, and today, hu mudbak b'shchina, today he is cleaved to the Shechina. Tsoyek v'nene miyad chulu, he yells out, and he is immediately responded to. So you see this advantage of tsoyek v'nene miyad as it is by the Baal Tshuva. So the Rambam brings this in the second halacha about being responded to immediately. But in the previous halacha, the Rambam already talked about the Baal Tshuva being close to Hashem. And why does he separate it? He could have said he's close to Hashem, and therefore he's answered to. But the Rebbe is going to point out there's two levels of closeness to Hashem. The first level in the previous, to be answered immediately, it's more than close to Hashem. It's when you're done. Listen, we need to understand, in the halacha that precedes this halacha that he's responded to immediately, Zog the Rambam says, Hateshuva mekareves esor echoikim. Teshuva brings those who were distant close. Emesh hoyozeh son uy lifnei hamokim. The day before, this person was hated before Hashem. Meshuketz, he was repugnant. Umeruchik, he was distant. V'ta'eva, he was disgusting. Vayoim, but today, he's beloved. V'nechmad is sweet and korev close v'yidid and a friend. So it would seem fitting to this that now he's close. The Rambam should say that those was tzoyek v'nene miyad. Why is he? When he cries out, he's answered immediately. As a result, because he's korev v'yidid, all v'nechmad is thus a mesuba from them. That's a result from the fact was mis ohov v'nechmad korev v'yidid. The fact that you're beloved, is sweet, and close, and a friend by the Meibesh and by Hashem. That's the result. Is farvos machtes the Rambam aninyan b'fnei atzmei. So why does the Rambam make this into a separate subject and writes in a separate halacha, in a halacha b'fnei atzmo, this idea that he's responded separately. It seems to be an outcome of what the Rambam writes in the previous halacha. What the Rebbe is going to point out now, it's actually two different levels. In the first level is Taka Korev, but it's not Davuk. And over there we don't have the Nenemiyad because it's not as close. But in the second halacha, where you're Davuk, which your mom is connected, then it's immediate. Wird man das verstehen von dem Biur in the zwei halachas, and also we'll understand this, that the Rambam, by explaining the two above halachas, the Lechaira would seem that beide halachas haben demselben Teuchen. They both have the same idea. As durch Tshuva wird man known to the Meibishten, that through Tshuva you become close to Hashem. That was it. No, the Rambam sagt dort zwei dran, but the truth is that the Rambam is telling us two steps in Mailas HaTshuva, in the level, the advantage of Tshuva. Und der Pfarrer teilt sie in zwei besondere halachas, and that's why he separates them in two separate halachas. In the erster halacha redt wegen Kiruv l'Shchina. The first halacha, he talks about becoming close to the divine. Kilashoyne b'tchilas halacha. Close, but not connected, close. In the beginning of the halacha, he says, Gedoyla teshuva shemekareves es ha'odom l'Shchina. That teshuva is great, that it brings the person close to Hashem, to the divine. Und das drückt sich aus. How does this express itself, that closeness? In them and the fact was emesh hoyas sonu imeruchik. Yesterday he was hated and distant. By yom over nechmat v'korav he did, and today he's loved, he's sweet, and he's close and a friend. In the zweite halacha wegen a hechere darge. In the second halacha he's talking about a higher level in Mailas Tshuva, in the level of Tshuva. Kama me'ula Mailas HaTshuva. How advantageous is the advantage of Tshuva. As need blois vertman over nechmod korevi. Did not only are you beloved and sweet and close and a friend, korev l'shchina. Not only are you close, korev, nor men vert mudbak. You become pasted, cleaved, connected. Far einzig, you become united. Dveikes b'shchina, connect b'shchina. Und der Rebbe stellt der Rambam dem Inyan von Zeug v'nene miyad. And that's why the Rambam places this idea from, once you cry out to Hashem, you get answered immediately in that halacha, specifically in the second halacha, when it talks about becoming united, becoming one with Hashem. Behemshech to dem Inyan von hayoim v'mutbek b'shchina, as a follow-up to the idea that he said in this halacha, in the second halacha, that today he's connected to the Shechina. Und nicht in der Friedrich halacha, but not in the previous halacha, ha'inyan von mekudav l'Shechina, in the idea that he was close to Shechina. Weil das was soyek v'nene miyad, this that he is cries out and gets answered immediately, kumt als titzor derfun. This comes as a result from the fact was mi is mudbak b'Shechina, that you are connected. You are connected to the Shechina. You are pasted and connected to the Shechina. So the Rebbe brings from this Rambam that there is association to being responded. What is that? What is the idea to being responded right away? That has to do with the fact that you're connected to the Shechina, not close to the Shechina, but mudbak, but you're actually connected to the Shechina. Because as the Rebbe will explain, that why is things take time, it's because it's separate, it's not really connected. So the Rambam writes this second halacha when he talks about the additional advantage of about Teshuvah, who's not only Korev, but in addition to that, he's also Mudbak B'Shchina. Over there he's answered right away, which will explain to us this whole idea of what are these prayers that connect, that are answered right away, which we begin to discuss from the Medrash of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Gimel. Das Bore bezed explanation this. The Shihiyas Hazman, was es doir dieser Sach kommt von dem Neusen zu dem Mekabel. The time that it takes or a matter to come from the giver to the recipient is abavais, that is evident, that proves as the makabel is nit dovok u'meuchad mit noisen, that the recipient is not connected and united and one with the giver. Takes time to come from one to the other. Pshita ze seinen zwei besondere Sachen. And obviously, they're two separate matters. One is the giver, one is the taker. So they're separate. As opposed to when they are connected and united, is nito kain shehiyah v'hefsek. There's no delay. There's no interruption in zman. There's no time lapse. Bs is nito b'mokim. Just that there is no place. They're not distant physically. There's also no distant in time. It's immediate. Since they're like one, on and up till zwischen day, without any separation between them, so there's no time lapse. Und der Riber, and therefore, B'shas a mensch is blois koriv zum Ebersten, if a person is just close to Hashem, which is, v'nechmod koriv yidid, his beloved, sweet, and a close and a friend, aber nit dovok b'shchina, but he's not at the level that he's connected to the Shchina. He's enochinami. Let it be true that he's still responded to us, being dear, etc. But the Eibishter on him is Bakosha, Hashem will accept his request. But it's not necessarily going to be immediately. The Afkeven that is mutbag b'shchina, specifically when he is connected to the Shchina, their mispalel is davuk u'ma'uchad. The one who is praying is connected and united. To them, welcher entfert, to the one who is responding to him. If he's connected to the one who is responding, connected to the Eibishter, is a nenein and oifen, then he is responded to in a way from the Vekas, being connected, oich bisman tikkun, also just like physically he's connected. In space, also in time, he's responded to immediately. So this is the explanation why the Nene Miyad in the Rambam is in the second halacha, in which he talks about the fact that he's dovuk, because by definition, something which is dovuk in space is also dovuk in zman, which means it takes no time from one to the other. But if you're separate, it takes time, because if you're different, to get space and also in time. So the Rebbe is going to extend this idea that there are different prayers that are prayers that represent that level of the Vekas. This is people is Baal Tshuva we're talking about, but there's also a type of a prayer that talks about connection. That prayer that talks about connection, because it is about the connection, it has a quicker response to the prayer, and that is the unique prayers of Eliezer and Moshe and Shlomo, which were talking about connections between Hashem and the world, whether it's to the world, the Beis Hamikdash by Shlomo HaMelech, it's in the world, or we're talking about connection to Moshe Rabbeinu as a prophet, Hashem Shlochani, or we're talking about the idea of Torah, which is that marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka, which Eliezer was praying for, as the Rebbe will explain at length how this is associated to Torah later on in this Sikha. Dalet. Kishem v'dosis b'negei Gabra, just as it is, as it relates to the person, them Adam hamispalel, the person who is praying, as that inyan fun tzoyeg v'nene miyad, that this idea of crying out and being responded immediately is verbunden, is tied, und is atitzoe, and it is a result from them was mis mudbag b'shchina, because you are connected to the Shchina. Al derech ze yesh loymar, similar we can also say, as is benegeya der chefza, as it is the object, that prayer, the person who prays can be connected, and sometimes it's a prayer, the object of the prayer, the Meile und der Teuchen von der Tefillah, the advantage and the contents of the prayer, also has a advantage that it can be answered immediately. Und der Teuchen von der Tefillah, benitten the Dan in our case, the Meile von the Gimel Tefillah is the advantage of these three prayers, as a seinen verbunden mit den Inyan von Dveikes B'Shchina, that they are associated, they're tied to the idea, these prayers, to connecting to Shchina. And based on this, we can explain was mentelt ois dafke di drei tefillas, why we separate and we talk specifically about these three prayers. Number one, Aleph Tefillah Shloima, and that is Bikesher to Gilui HaShechina. That prayer is tied to the revelation of the divine in space, V'shachanti b'soicham b'mikdash, amongst the Yidden in the Beis HaMikdash. That's the connecting of Hashem. That objective of prayer is to reveal, associated with revealing the Shechina in amongst the Yidden in the Beis HaMikdash, in space. Beis Tfilas Moshe. Then we have the Moshe Rabbeinu, B'kesher to Machloikis Kerach, as it's associated, which was challenged, the divine connection to a Navi, to a person, to Moshe Rabbeinu, Bezois Teidun ki havayesh lachani, that Hashem sent me, so that is the revelation of the Shechina in people. V'imbriya yivra Hashem koimer, as he says, but if Hashem will create this new creation, so that would be a revelation of the Shekhinah, a new creation in the connection to the Eibishter's revealing himself to Moshe, to a Navi, that's the connection. And Gimel Tfilas Eliezer ben Kesher l'Nesuya Yitzchak v'Rivka, the prayer of Eliezer, which says regards to the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka, which that marriage represented Yitzchak, who was an Oila Temima, son of Abram, with Rivka, who was the daughter of Lavan Harami, Chutzlaris, connecting Elyoinu with the Tachtoinu, as the Rebbe will say later on. Balzei and Halten the Drai Fanim Klolia, because they consist of the general three ways in Gilu Elikus, in an Eifum Funis Havdus, the way godliness is revealed in a way of union, which is Dveikus B'Shchina, connecting to the Shechina. There's three general ways of the cleaving of the Shechina, Belchazain, and Do in der Brier, which consists creation. In creation, we have the three levels. In Welt, in the world, that's the Beis HaMikdash. In Bnei Adam, in people, that's Moshe Rabbeinu. And in Torah, that's Eliezer of Avram, as the Rebbe will explain in the Sikha. So the Rebbe basically explains over here that these three prayers are special, not because the people that prayed them, but the type of the prayer, because these prayers represent the three general cleaving connection of the Shekhinah. And this is associated, as the Rebbe will explain specifically how all this translate in these three different prayers. So first, the Rebbe is going to explain the Gilui Shechina, the way it's in the Beis HaMikdash, and Nevi'im and Moshe Rabbeinu, and then the Rebbe will move over to explain by Eliezer Eved Avram how that's connected to the level of Torah. Hey, the Gilui Elikus in Welt, the revelation of godliness in the world, in an Eifun Fun His Achdus, in a way of uniting is the Gilu Shechina was is given b'Mikdash. That was the divine revelation, the way it was in the Beis Hamikdash. Gilu Elokus in Migdash is given by often the revelation of godliness in the Migdash was in a way as Mokoim business achet geworden mit Elokus. That space was united with godliness. Mit Gizen be'enei basar. You can see with your physical eyes of flesh, as their mokim gashmi is bottled to that the physical space is subjugated to godliness, shalamaylu ben hamokim, which is higher than space. Bis to the extent as their mokim gufa is geworden hecher from mokim, that the space itself is not only subjugated, but became higher than space, hecher from mokim. K'maimer Chazal, as our sages tell us, mokim orin einay min hamida. The space of the orin that it took up, that space was not a measurable space because measuring it from the sides of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you had the full measurement, even though that the orin wasn't there, which should have taken away, but the orin didn't take up any space. Einay min hamida. Und das ist der Teuchen von Tfilas Shloimeh. This is the contents of Shloimeh's prayer. Bonoi bonisi beis zvulach, I have built a house, a dwelling place for you, mochen l'shivtecha ilamim, so a place prepared for you to sit there for eternity. And as he says, Hashamayim u'shmei Hashamayim lo yichal kelucha. The heavens and the heavens of the heavens cannot support you. Also this Asher Bonis that I built. So, which means, how could we have the divine who that cannot being contained by the Shemayim, Shmei Shemayim, to be contained in this bias? But the Eibishter responded, bald noch dem is nenne geworden b'meine piv. And shortly thereafter, he was responded to in his prayer that he spoke. It says, when Shloimeh finished davening, and the fire descended from the heavens, and the glory of Hashem filled the house, the Beis Hamikdash. As is geworden the Hashros Hashchina begilu beBeis Hamikdash. It became the resting of the divine openly in the Beis Hamikdash. Unfundamelt on, and from then on is the Hashros Hashchina geblieben, ba'ofen nitzchin dem ort. The resting of the divine remained eternally, in an eternal way in that space. It's always there. The divine's presence is always there, united. Kipsak din harambam, as the Rambam rules that from the time that the Eibishter chose the Beis Hamikdash, there is no other place that can be, and there is eternally the divine presence. That's as far as space goes. The revelation of the divine to human beings in a way of uniting with them is that inyan hanavua. That's the idea of prophecy. Gilo soidoi. Hashem reveals his secret, the secret of Hashem, El Avodav Anivim, to his servants, the prophets. The prophets, the servants of Hashem, his secret becomes united. It's revealed to them. That too is a main aspect, a fundamental aspect in our religion, our belief. In the Rambam's language, this is from the basis of our religion. Leidat is to know shehakel minabe as b'nei ha'adam, that Hashem prophesizes human being. That's part of the amunah, of the belief. But gilu hanevuah is ba'ofen, when prophecy is revealed, is in a way as der Novi verdovukum uchad mitvar ha-mitten dvar havai, that the Novi becomes connected and united one with the word of Hashem. These as the dvar havai, to the extent they're so connected to the word of Hashem, as the dvar havai is mislabish. Hashem's words dresses up b'sichlom v'hasagosam, in their intellect, in their grasp, b'mare hanevua, in the vision of the prophecy, v'gam b'machshavtom v'diburim, and also in their thought and speech. Und das ist der Teichen hat viel of Moshe Rabbeinu. This was the content of the prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu. Und der Phariser nenne geworden miyad, that's why he was responded to immediately. Bezois teidun. Hashem said to him as soon as he prayed, this you know, ki havayesh lochani, that I was sent by Hashem, lasis is kol ha'maisim ha'elu gomer, to do all these things, what he did to make the Kohen Gadol, to make Aaron, and etc. Im kemois kol adam yemusun elu. If these people will die ordinarily, gomer lo Hashem shlochani, then I wasn't sent by Hashem. But v'im bria, if a creation, Yivra Hashem v'yidaitem ki, if the Hashem creates something, a new creation, then you will know. Das heißt, which means, es ist nicht an oisu meifis of dem inyan von klolus teidas Moshe. This is not a sign. This is not an idea just giving us generally about Moshe's teaching. As the tzivuyin u'mitzvahs ha-Torah seine gesagt geworden lo Moshe miSinai, that the commands and the mitzvahs of Torah were said to Moshe by Sinai. Nor an oisu meifis, this is supposed to be a sign and a proof. As Moshe is shluchai k'Moshe mamish, that Moshe is actually an agent like Hashem, actually b'negeya kol ha'maisim ha'elu, as it relates to all of these actions. Losis la'Aaron kuno gedoylo, to give to Aaron the great, the high priest, to become Kohen Gadol, ubon of skane kuna, and his son should be the assistant. Skane kuna ve'litzofan nosei ha'kosi, and the litzofan should be the leader of the kosi. So here, this is a specific proof for the shlichus. This is an additional advantage on that was as is Torah's Moshe. Besides, in addition to being Torah's Moshe, this is also the agency as a mission. He is an agent and the prophecy of Moshe. Gilus Soidei. Und der Far bringt the Far Brie Yivra Gilui Chodosh. This is a new revelation. It's more. It's not this general, but it's a new creation for the new aspect and the new proof for Moshe Rabbeinu's shlichus and for Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy. Nevuah was besugba bedugmasa, but in this category, is similar to it, is given Nevuah Sara Nevi'im, was the other Nevi'im. So this is the union and the prayer and the connection with this immediately, because it's talking about how the divine connects with people, with prophets, with prophecy, which is the second wave connection. So these two are quite clear how Moshe Rabbeinu represents Nevuah, that Hashem sent him. This is a shlichus of Hashem. How Shlomo represents Mokim, the space, because the connection of Hashem in the space of the Beis HaMikdash. And then we have in the dritter Eifun Kloli von Gilu Hashchina, the third general way of the revelation of divine in Torah, that is the Eber's connection to Torah. The Yiraisa v'Kutshabrichu Kuluchad. The Torah and Hashem are one. Is verbunden mit Tfilas Eliezer. That's connected, that's tied to the prayer of Eliezer Kedila Kamon, as the Rebbe will explain how Eliezer's prayer has to do with the idea of Torah, because Torah is the connection of Elyonim v'Tachtonim, Ani HaMaschil, the Torah from Hashem with the human beings below, and this is really the shidduch between Yitzchak and Rivka. Yitzchak from Milmaila, and the connection with Rivka, as the Rebbe will continue to explain.